After a long night in the tavern, the group went back to their current lodging, as suddenly a shrill cry echoed through the streets. The heroes instantly ran towards the source of the cry, only to find... Well, let's find out together, shall we? Halloween is nearly upon us, and I want to use that opportunity to share a spooky story from my legacy campaign with you all. But first, riddle me this. You heard me before, yet you hear me again. But then I die until you call me again. What am I? Write your guesses down in the comments below, and the first one who finds the right answer will get a shoutout in the next video. The solution to last week's riddle is your word, or an oath if you saw the last storytime video. The first one who got it right was King of the Wands. Congratulations! Now let's see what we got in the chest today. The heroes had just finished their adventure in Obstgarten when they received a letter. It was from the professor. He needed help in Finsterfurt. Obviously, he did not explain what was going on, only that the time was running out. With a rough idea where the journey would take them, the group passed a farm. The players had the brilliant idea that it might speed up their journey to have a pack horse to help Frida the mule carry their equipment. While they could also ask for directions. After difficult negotiations, they could call an old rickety horse their own, which Malve named Harvard. Right away, the now bigger group traveled on, until they finally arrived in Finsterfurt, a small town surrounded by hills and forests. In the distance behind it, an old, eerie, crumbling keep was looming. But even before they could enter the town, they were stopped by a small armed group. A self-proclaimed militia had set up, and they didn't want outsiders, especially a band of adventuring misfits, to enter. Gibbs, the leader of the militia, was especially hostile towards the group and in general behaved like a huge jerk. After a long argument with Gibbs and his militia, a fight nearly broke loose, until a friendly priestess helped the heroes. They were allowed to go into Finsterfurt as guests of Lorimor and his family, and were immediately told the reason for their arrival. Lorimor's wife had suddenly died and was just buried. Shocked and puzzled, the group is invited to their friend's house, where they meet his only remaining relative, his daughter Liliana. The more the heroes learned about Andrella's death, the stranger the events seemed to be. She was one of the 4 elder men of the city, and her death left a power vacuum. It couldn't have been a natural death. She showed too many odd behaviors before she died. Like the professor, she once was a member of the adventuring group the Blue Mug, and as a member of that party she was not easily spooked and lived a dangerous life before her retirement. But the days before her death she started drinking and running around town in the middle of the night, speaking of strange things that made no sense to the people who listened. So the group concluded that they would have to search for more clues to uncover the circumstances of her mysterious death and find the culprit behind it all. It was time to solve this mystery. After a day of investigation, they collected a list of suspects. The pharmacist called Jorminda, who was said to be selling poisons or even being a witch, which was especially important and interesting to Kellen, the witch hunter of the group. She received frequent visits from the city's constable, who asked a lot about the safety of her ingredients. It turned out that he just had a crush on her though. Next on the list was the strangely eccentric man who set up this militia, Gibbs. The other elder man, who now wanted to elect a mayor of Finsterfurt to replace the old system, as well as some others. To make matters worse, the party encountered different paranormal activities all around Finsterfurt. At first, things like trails of non-existent wagon suddenly appearing in the middle of the road, leading to the old ruin. Then, claw marks above their beds that spelled their names. But as soon as letters in blood on the statue on the town square appeared, slowly spelling the name of Liliana, day by day, letter by letter, the group was certain that they had to hurry to find the source of these strange activities in order to protect Liliana's life before her name was finished. Their panic grew as they heard spooky tales of a criminal that murdered after spelling out their victim's name in blood. Soon they discovered that their intuition was right. Andrella's name was also spelled in a similar fashion right before she died under these mysterious circumstances. Protecting Liliana became an official quest for the party now that they had proof. While Malve and Koroc asked all sorts of residents about their knowledge of this place and the strange sightings, Callan and Nymeria tried to have an official contact person in the city. There were 3 remaining leaders of the town, but one of them was so frightened she tried to stay out of everything that really mattered. There were only 2 options for the adventuring group, both of whom had very different interests, and it was up to Nymeria and Callan to find out which of the 2 would be the better help for the party. Sadly, Malve's and Crike's investigation only brought to light a whole series of strange monster stories and creepy nursery rhymes, but nothing that could be directly linked to Andrella's mysterious death. But while the heroes were already investigating, they themselves were considered suspicious, and the constable kept an eye on them. Stealth was required for the heroes while they investigated the crime scene and also Andrella's grave. Then, one evening, the party got together in the local tavern to talk about their findings and also to relax a little bit. Nymeria and Malve started talking to the tavern owner about the house's specials, like vampire steak with a real steak in it, or liquid ghost, a green shimmering liquor. Callan and Crike were still talking to each other alone, but not for long. 2 women came over and started flirting with both of them. But Crike was only interested in trendy headwear, and none of the women could satisfy that. Callan respectfully declined as well after initially showing interest in the half-elven woman. Both women walked over to another table to talk to the other locals and left our brooding heroes to themselves. After a long night in the tavern, the group went back to their current lodging, as suddenly a shrill cry echoed through the streets. The heroes instantly ran towards the source of the cry, only to find the lady Callan talked to earlier dead on the ground, a small demon looming over her body. It craved a symbol into her flesh and started cackling maniacally. The heroes had to fight the creature and several undeads rising from the ground. They were successful, but the woman was beyond saving. After this incident, security measures were tightened and the alderman imposed a curfew to protect their citizens, enforced by Gibbs and his militia. But the heroes could not rest until they finally found out who was responsible for all that happened. The demon that escaped during the fight? No, the creature itself was part of the problem, but not the real reason. It was only a familiar, but who was its master? They had to dig deeper, and for that they had to operate silently in the night. While Callan and Crike searched the town, Nymeria and Malve waited patiently at the statue to capture the culprit on the act. To their surprise, both teams found something. Callan and Crike found the remains of a dead chicken devoid of blood near the hut of a suspect, while Nymeria and Malve spotted the man who was responsible for the letters drawn in blood. It was Gibbs, the militia leader, but he acted strange. The group managed to overpower him. They found out that he was mind-controlled by some kind of evil spirit. With the help of the constable, he was locked up behind bars to protect himself and the townspeople, while the group continued their investigation. It was still unclear who was behind it all, and more importantly, what their end goal was, as the strange events and zombie encounters increased in the following nights. But at least the letter writing stopped, so they had bought themselves a little bit more time. After an especially harsh attack, the people gathered in the town hall to listen to the alderman and also to vote on what to do to solve that problem. While the group tried to convince the people that they were here to help and that they knew what had to be done, burning skulls flew through the windows and set the building ablaze. With no time to spare, the heroes fought and helped with all their heart. They coordinated the evacuation while fighting the flames and the skulls, saving the building with no harm to any civilians. They had acquired the trust of the town and certain informations in the fight with the skulls. They were singing the nursery rhymes about the prisoners of Dornstein. Malve knew that they had to go there at some point. She had read enough horror stories after all, but didn't want it to ruin the surprise for the others. Now they were sure that they had to visit the old haunted ruin to solve the mystery and save Liliana from certain doom. As some of you might have already recognized, the adventure we played was based on the Pathfinder adventure path, the Carrion Crown, but heavily modified to fit my setting. Or maybe you have already watched the first part of the Legacy campaign. I try to make every episode interesting from a standalone perspective without the need to watch everything from the start. But if you like this one, check out the other episode. If you haven't already, subscribe and ring the bell to get advantage on never missing out on a new video I upload. If you like fantasy maps like the one I created in the background of this video, check out my Instagram where I share many of my maps. Lastly, a huge thank you to my Patreon for supporting me on my journey. Your support means a lot to me. Thank you all for sticking with me till the end. Your Dungeon Master for this video was Koroc DM, and I hope you join me on the next one.